How's it, guys? Welcome back to another Brothers War Budget Deck Tech. Today, we're going to look at Jon Irenicus, Shattered One. Irenicus is a 4-cost 3/3 creature. He says, at the beginning of your end step, target opponent gains control of up to one target creature you control. Put 2+1/+1 counters on it and tap it. It's goaded for the rest of the game, and it gains, this creature can't be sacrificed. Whenever a creature you own but don't control attacks, you draw a card. Goading was a mechanic introduced in Conspiracy that says, until your next turn, the goaded creature attacks each combat if able, and attacks a player other than you if able. So, basically, a goaded creature will always have to attack, and it can't attack you. This allows us to give our opponents really big creatures with massive drawbacks, like Abyssal Persecutor, which prevents that opponent from winning, and then for everybody else losing the game. What we want to do with Irenicus is play a bunch of creatures like that cause us to lose life or sacrifice permanents at the beginning of our upkeep. And with those creatures in play, we give them to our opponents, and they're going to have to attack each other with them and suffer the consequences of having them on their board because they can't sacrifice them. A couple examples of the type of creatures we want to run are going to be Desecration Elemental, Steel Golem, Thought Devourer, Morkrut Necropod, Phyrexian Negator, and Flesh Reaver. These cards are going to start whittling down our opponent's life totals while they're attacking each other, and then simultaneously destroy their boards. Another strategy we have with Irenicus is swapping control of those said creatures to different opponents based off of our current threat assessment. We're going to have cards like Modify Memory, which will reward us for distributing our donated creatures back and forth between our enemies. Fateful Handoff will draw us cards equal to the mana value of a creature or artifact we control, and then give it to one of our opponents, which will allow us to draw off of one of our big creatures that kind of sucks, and then give it to someone else. Wrong Turn will simply give an opponent a target creature. So with this, we could change who controls a creature that we gave to somebody, or we could just take away a combo piece from one of our opponents. We also want to get our opponents to attack each other without us forcing them exactly to do it with Irenicus. So in addition to our commander, we're going to run a couple enchantments that cause our opponents to attack each other. Our first one is going to be Curse of Verbosity, which is a curse that you put on a player, and everybody who attacks that player will get to draw a card, in addition to us. After that, we have Parasitic Impetus, which will give a creature +2/+2 and goad it, and it will also drain for 2 life whenever they attack. Lastly, we have Psychic Impetus, which will give a creature +2/+2, goad it, and give it flying, so it has some evasion. Because our commander says whenever a creature you own but don't control attacks, draw a card, we don't need to run many more draw engines, although there are a couple in this deck. We're going to want to run creatures that survive combat pretty often so that we get to keep drawing. So in this deck, we're going to have a couple creatures with evasion in different forms, including Psychic Impetus, which is going to be Evil Eye of Orms by Gore, Slitherblade, Changeling Outcast, and Tormented Soul. So by forcing our opponents to attack each other and getting their life totals really low, we should be able to clutch out a win by saving some of our creatures that maybe aren't as bad, or just the unblockable ones, to sneak some damage in. This deck is really looking to be like a big problem at the table. So some of our upgrades that we might want to run to put in the deck will be Infernal Grasp and Fatal Push, although they are expensive, so this is like post-budget upgrades. Or some of the more powerful creatures with negative effects like Ebonblade Reaper or Master of the Feast. So because this is a budget deck, our lands are primarily going to be basic lands, so swamps and islands, and a couple of the cheaper dual lands, like the reveal lands. Again, in my budget decks, I usually choose to exclude Soul Ring, as it just removes $1 from our budget or more, and doesn't really add to how our deck plays. But with this current deck list, I have left room in the $50 to include a Soul Ring if you prefer to do so. And that's going to conclude my budget deck tech for Jon Irenicus Shattered One. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment for another commander you might like to see me build a deck around, budget or not, or if you want to see any more of my decks. This has been Brothers War. Shoots.